Hi, welcome to What's on Your Mind. I'm Peter Snowart, and what can we learn today from Riana Milne? Riana who? Riana Milne. She's a quite famous US life and love coach, and we talk about the childhood traumas impacting our future relationships. Also, what is a narcissist and how can you detect a narcissistic person, and much more about relationships and dating tips. It's a very special and unique conversation with Riana Milne. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Welcome to What's on Your Mind with Peter Snowart. Every week, a guest talks about his or her story, and that story can inspire you to change your own. Here's Peter.
So, nice to meet you, Riana. That's the right pronunciation of your name, eh?
It is, Riana Milne. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now, you are... I see you are a life, love, mindset coach. But, I mean, the life and the mindset, it's great. But I want to talk about the love part.
Yes, I'm a love trauma recovery coach. We didn't have enough spaces for that.
Yeah. First of all, why? Because most people that I know who are in the love coaching business or in relationship therapy, at least that's my perception. In order to be credible, you have to have also. If you have one relationship, it doesn't make any. It doesn't give you credibility. Why did you become? Why the specialization in the love, relationship, narcissistic, the healing, the trauma? Why is that calling you?
Okay, well, I did graduate with a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology. So as a psychotherapist, you're seeing a lot of couples in crisis. But I also worked in every grade level in the schools, kindergarten through college. I worked in a mental health ward of a hospital for kids ages 5 through 19. And I worked in drug and alcohol rehab centers because I'm an addictions counselor as well. So one was for teens and one was women from the prison system. And no matter the age, the culture, the background, the country, whether they were straight or LGBTQ, there was no difference. These top 10 childhood traumas kept coming up and impacting them in their current lives as young adults or adults. And I didn't get into this specialized study until I had 2 love traumas. The first one, you just figure, oh, well, you move on. And then when it happens a second time and you go to 7 psychotherapy friends and you don't understand why your ex-husband had a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality type and where that comes from. You know, in my program of study, we never heard about childhood trauma. We might have heard about attachment theory. We might have heard about, other things, post-traumatic stress disorder, but that was always around soldiers or witnessing death, not trauma of the self in life or in love relationships. So when it happened to me, I wanted to look further. I needed to heal myself. And that's how my research started. And in the research, I started using my own experience with the population I was working with what I had experienced, and started writing. And that led to my #1 bestseller, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. It's 400 pages. But my research kept going, and then I did workbooks for singles and for couples to heal from this. So that's how the coaching evolved, and I really wanted to take this message to the world. As a psychotherapist, I'm limited to one state. As a coach, I can go global, and that's what I decided to do in 2017, take this message globally. So I appreciate you, Peter, helping this change the way the world loves.
Because I have also been through one divorce, so I remarried also 7 years ago. I mean, in terms of relationships, I had a lot, and I cannot say I'm an expert. To start with your ex-partner, ex-husband, I assume that you were in a toxic relationship?
Well, when you have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality type, one part of them is outstanding. Okay. We had an amazing romantic relationship. We traveled the world together. We had a lot of fun. We were great dance partners. Mm-hmm. We both loved our careers. So everything looked perfect. And then he had a secret life. that happened to explode on him in the school he was working in. So there's some confidentiality. I can't go into everything.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
But, it ruined his life. He lost his career, his reputation. And because he was involved and I was married to him, it impacted me, my career, and I had to clean up the pieces because he ran out of town in shame and embarrassment. So it was a big jolt and change in my life and what I thought we would have for our retirement years. But the research really helped me find forgiveness because I was able to identify he had 9 out of the 10 childhood traumas, and they were quite severe, an impact level of about a 9. Okay. So it made me understand why he did what he did. And when I finished the book, I sent him a copy. He goes, "Oh my God, put my picture on the cover. I'm the poster child of this." But I finally understand why I sabotage everything I love. And that was a big healing moment, not only for myself, but for him. And it led to forgiveness. And then I said, this could heal so many more people if they really knew and understand what was going on within their relationships.
Interesting.
And why they pick the partners they do to begin with.
Yeah. Interesting topic. I think we will not have enough time for one session of an hour. Okay, let's start with this. You mentioned the 9 of the 10 childhood traumas. Of course, we want to know what are the childhood traumas. And I assume that everybody has been traumatized in some kind of way. I mean, I think assuming that we are perfect and we don't have traumas, even when you grew up in a very loving and kind, warm nest, I mean, you still, I assume... for instance, the father, he was nice, but he was emotionally not present. He did not know how to express his emotions properly, or he ran away physically or mentally. Because some men, which I did in the past, can run away in their head. You are there, but mentally you're like, this is way too complex. And I say, yes, but you're thinking by yourself, so, I mean, just being there, grounded, listening, trying to understand the other party, and then, giving that sense of understanding. So, what are the 10 childhood traumas?
Actually, more.
Okay.
I want to preface it with my research when I was doing this in 2011 and 12 said 9 out of 10 people have at least 1 to 3 on this list. Okay. This year, it has come out. There's always newer research that everyone has experienced childhood traumas or traumas in their life. And there is big T and little t trauma. So little t trauma is these emotional things over time, repeatedly. Yep. Big T trauma is what most people would say, well, I didn't have any trauma when I grew up, which could be born with a physical impairment, having a major car accident, losing a parent while young. That's a big T trauma. But the research shows and the science shows that whether big or little t trauma, it's the same impact in the brain and the body cells. Yep. And childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. So if you recognize yourself in this list of having them, your parents had them, and so did your grandparents have them. So at least 3 generations. And really, it's not your fault because as a child, you were just a product of your environment. There's nothing you can do as a child to change or control what happens around you. So I wanted to really explain that before I go into the top 10, that, we're not looking to blame your parents at this stage of life. And we're not.
They did their best. They did their best.
Right. Did the best they can. And you don't want to feel any shame or guilt that you might have experienced any of these. And I always say you can't change what you don't acknowledge or understand. So you have to understand the root of issues before we can change them. Okay, so the first one is, did your caretakers while you were young have any of these things? So the first one is addiction. And there's many addictions, so I'm going to name them, which would be drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was a cheater, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism, and the last one I've added recently is social media addiction.
Yeah, okay.
You're on the computer more than you are interacting with your child. The addiction always comes first before the interaction with the child. So that's number one. Number two is verbal abuse or messages that we hear. So that could include watching mom and dad fighting a lot. It could be verbal put downs or yelling and screaming at you. It could be getting the silent treatment where they ignore you for hours or days at a time. It could be never hearing the words, I love you, or hearing compliments like, I'm proud of you, kiddo. Good job. I know you worked hard on that test. You got a B. That's okay. I saw you studying hard anyway. So just those verbal accolades, which us baby boomer generations never heard the words, I love you, and barely got compliments. Here in the U.S., my parents grew up in the Great Depression, and I asked my mom, why don't you say the words, I love you, to us 5 kids? And she said, well, I didn't hear those words. We grew up in the Depression. It was all about work and survival. So I said, aha, and that's a clear message of this generational pull of what happens right through time. Okay, the third one is emotional abuse or neglect. The fourth one is any physical abuse like beating or hitting, and this could happen inside or outside of the home. Like you said, Peter, you could have a really nice, idyllic family life, but get beat up at school by the bully. Yep. Okay, so this is just childhood experiences. It could be rape, molestation, date rape. Anything like that is in category 4. Trauma 5 would be around abandonment. And I named 2 types, fault and no fault abandonment. So a no fault abandonment would be like losing your parent very early in life. It would be losing your parent as they go off to serve their country for war. It would be, like you said, they are there personally, but are not emotionally present. They're checked out. So that could be the workaholic dad, works all day, come home, locks himself in his office all night, barely talks to you. Or the football dad, that happens a lot in America. I hear my own kids in therapy who would say, Miss Riana, why do I have to go visit my dad? He doesn't pay attention to me. All weekend he's watching football. So that kid feels very lonely and abandoned. So that is called a fault abandonment. Fault abandonment would also be if they worked a lot. A no-fault abandonment would be also if they worked away from the family home, but that's how they supported the family. So in their mind, they're doing a good thing. The fault abandonment would never be involved with your child at all, or you were involved while the couple stayed together or the marriage was together. Once it broke up, you barely saw your child. So those are the difference between fault and no-fault abandonment. The next one would be if you were adopted, part of the foster care system, or had to live in another person's home because your parents lost their home, or they couldn't keep you. There were too many kids, so they put you in grandma or an aunt's home or family friend, something like that. Trauma number 7 is the one that most people identify with. This is called personal trauma. So it's if you felt different in any way. So you could have been an overweight and chubby child. You could have been skinny and gawky and called the nerd. You could have had a medical issue that made you feel different, or even identified as ADHD in the schools. I worked with those kids. I know they felt different and hated being pulled out for special classes. You could have been coming out as a gay or lesbian teen and felt different and not accepted. You could have been the only African American in an all Caucasian school. So there's many ways, whether it's racial, cultural, economic status, and many ways that you just felt different or didn't fit in. That's 7. Trauma 8 is around the sibling. So your sibling could have bullied you. You could have been compared to the sibling. They were smarter than you, more handsome, more beautiful, or the star student. Most often you identify your sibling as the golden child. It also could be if they were born with a medical issue, so mom and dad had to spend more time with them, kind of leaving you off to the side. Trauma 9 has 2 traumas. One had to be brought down from the bigger list. And that one brought down was called community trauma. When I was growing up, there was barely any community trauma. Now it's happening all the time. So this could be our Mother Nature events, floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, wiping out whole communities. It is certainly the COVID pandemic, which is really influencing all of us around the globe. Our children, needing to can't go to school, wearing masks, can't play with their friends, or can't give their friends a hug. That will be impacting them as they become adults. The fear-based thing that you'll get sick. And that has impacted all of us. The other community traumas would be our mass shootings, like school shootings, community shootings. So there's many of that going on, unfortunately, today. In my state where I live, Florida, in the USA, we just had this big building collapse. Suddenly, a condo building, which I know is being broadcast all over the world, that is certainly, a big trauma for the community at large. And then these community traumas impact the family, of course. With COVID, people have lost their jobs, their homes here in the USA. It is also family trauma if you grew up in a dangerous neighborhood. You're part of a military family that has to move every 2 to 4 years, and that puts the children as the new kid in the school all the time. It could be a parent who was incarcerated. So there's many ways that a family could be impacted. Another one that impacts people in business in the future is growing up with a lot of lack messages. We don't have monies to pay the bill. We don't have money to get you what you want. These lack messages do play with our minds if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, of course.
And the last one is mental health issues in mom or dad. The two most difficult for children, one is bipolar, which is manic depressive. Manic phase can be high and happy, but it's often tied to an addiction like a gambling spree, spending spree, eating binge. Depression can show up as anger, checking out emotionally, or extreme fatigue. And the other one is borderline personality disorder, which I describe easily as erratic moods. When they're good, they're great. When they're bad, they're horrid, and you never know what you're going to get. So that leaves a child in an overly anxious state. Most clients I have that come to me are always constantly anxious. So those are the top 10 traumas.
Now, of course, and it's a general question. Can we do something about it? Can we break that pattern, that pattern, so that the generations after me, my child, our child, doesn't have that anymore? I mean...
Yes, that's the good news. That's what I do. That's my work. And as a certified clinical trauma professional, it takes a while. We are training the unconscious mind and the norms that you grew up with into full conscious awareness, so that you think before you do, say, and act. There's a lot of negative fear-based thinking with people with unhealed trauma. That changes into positive, confident thinking. So it takes a while, to break these norms and patterns that don't serve you or your relationships. So I work with people 4 to 6 months and usually one-on-one. So I can really gear into what their traumas are. I look at the level of severity, 1 to 10, and then, help them in their particular areas of how this is showing up.
Oh, cool. Now, you also mentioned toxic relationships. I mean, I find it a very generic word. How can you detect, because I assume a lot of people are not even aware that they are in a toxic relationship because they're so used to it. How can you detect a toxic relationship, Riana?
Sick is anything that makes you feel sick. So you could get headaches, stomach aches. You're not able to sleep because you're worried at night. You go through this cycle of when it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's horrid. It's this top, they call it the cycle of domestic abuse. And we have something called RRS, relationship repetition syndrome. So people in a toxic relationship, the one person is consciously aware, like, this partner's not good for me. So then they break up. But then the overwhelming feeling of loss and abandonment and the thinking, well, he had some good traits and he's promised me he's going to change, and she takes him back. Then it's good for about 10 days to 2 weeks, and then it starts again. So the research show these relationships break up and get back together an average of 7 times. That's a toxic relationship. So this is also a view that there is love addiction going on. There's codependency. Very often these people have abandonment issues from their past, that they hold on too long or too tight. They're too clingy. But that's a sign of emotional abandonment. And there are other signs of how this shows up in relationships.
Now, imagine you are in a toxic relationship. I mean, you just should quit, or because you just explained about the traumas, or you just advise your partner to heal themselves, which can be a very delicate thing to say to your partner because you're pointing to somebody else, because there's always a part of you who is also involved.
That's right. Now, remember, 100% of people have trauma. It's easy to pick out the trauma in your partner, but you got to look at yourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Again, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So usually people of trauma attract people of trauma. The more traumatic their backgrounds, the more passionate it is in the beginning. It looks like to them the ideal relationship. They pay a ton of attention. They're texting. They're bringing you gifts. They want a fast marriage, and that person takes it as a compliment. Well, that is actually a red flag. And what is happening?
Wait. So what you're saying, it's a red flag. So your advice is to take things very slowly. And also another thing that I learned, which one of my colleagues are 24 and 25, I'm 46, and they asked me, what is good relationship advice? And I'm not going to shock you, but I say, and it's going to sounds very strange, wait as long as you can with the physical aspect. Don't do it immediately. Wait for weeks, even for months. It sounds really stupid. I've done it, and it is not a recipe for success because it makes you not talking to each other. And you are in a kind of oxytocin, what's the name? The hug hormone, where you are in some kind of atmosphere of pink and everything is fantastic. But it's not conscious, and it creates some kind of codependency thing where it's not real. The 90-day rule.
Days, which is 3 months, or till about 11 or 12 dates. Become friends first. Really get to know that partner. Again, chemistry is the worst way to fall in love because you are attracting. The brain likes to keep the body in homeostasis. It likes what it knows. It likes what it considers normal. So your brain will be attracting chemistry to the dysfunctional patterns of your past.
Okay.
And that's why you want to slow things down and wait. Is this person emotionally healthy? Are they evolved, meaning being their highest and their best self? Do you have enough things in common? Do you have the same vision for your future? You know, it's not about, are they hot or not? That is not the criteria for a great relationship. And unfortunately, most people, and I know here in America, we grew up with the fairy tales. Sleeping Beauty, the handsome prince comes, kisses you, you go off and you're happily ever after. Well, that's bull, that doesn't happen. So I do teach how to date in a whole different way, which I call conscious dating.
But there is also, I fully agree, I call it the Disney story. And you see it in the rom-coms also. I mean, can I kiss you? And they and everything happens. And it creates so wrong perceptions of the dating thing. But there's also
starts flying around the brain, and you're more connected by the pheromones and the sexual hormones, and God made it that way to procreate the race. I get it, but if you want the longer lasting relationship, you wait. Yeah,
indeed. Now, but there's also another thing that I discovered around my 40s is that, and it's a thing that not a lot of people know, but it's so obvious, is that there is some kind of myth, at least in Europe. That's what I believed for years. And I think it's similar in the US. Is that in order to be happy, you need to have a partner. And that partner, it's been in songs, I want you to want me, you're my better half, and things like that. But the reality is, the real truth is, the biggest person you will fall in love with is yourself. You are the best love of yourself. It's about you. And you don't need anybody else to be happy. If you are not happy with yourself, you will never, ever going to find it in somebody else, because you're going to fill the holes in you with another person and trying to compensate. And that's a myth that nobody told me that. I just discovered it around my 40s. I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me this?
Peter, I have on my website, I have 4 free love tests, but one of them is called relationship readiness. Are they really ready for a relationship? And it's a 1 to 10 score, and there's 10 items. And they all must be settled before you go out and date. Because psychologically, when you have your life together and everything is great and you're confident and you love your life and you're proud of who you are, now you're dating from a place of strength. Not weakness, not looking for someone to save you, not looking for someone to bail you out financially. No, you've got your life together. Now you go out and you say, wow, I am the whole package. And you want someone else that has their life together as well. And that makes the best relationship. 2 strong, empowered, confident, but loving people, spiritual people too. The research shows 2 spiritual-based people make the best, happiest, and longest relationships. So a sense of faith has to be in there too. And the research also shows 4 to 9 months, these toxic relationships, again, they're so romantic and passionate in the first few months, but months 4 to 9, you start seeing the problems emerge. And this is usually around more of a commitment. So exclusivity, moving in together, getting engaged, getting married, having a baby. Those are the 5 instances where you can start seeing massive personality changes or more addictions in the person because they're checking out or they're afraid or they're fear-based. So again, it starts with you, like you said, self-love, having your life together, then going out into dating, looking for an equally empowered person.
Okay. Now, a thing that I notice with a lot of people is that they fall in love with each other, they get married, they build a house, get children and things like that. And after a while, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, the feeling, the magic, the passion is gone. And they're like scared and they're like, the passion will be gone. So I have to take always new relationships. So they break up, they go in a new relationship and so on. And the cycle continues. What's your take on that? Is that so?
Continue to date your partner. It's funny, I had a couple in my therapy office and I asked the guy, well, when was the last time you had a date? And when the eyes go up to the ceiling, you're in trouble. One of those, they can't remember. And he said, well, I don't know, but why do I have to date my wife? I married her. And I said, do you still want sex? And they got really quiet. He goes, well, yeah. I said, well, then she needs to feel special and pretty and get her away from the kids and the to-do list at home. You got to keep romancing her. You got to dress nice, put something nice on, smell good, groom yourself. And ladies, the same thing. With COVID, everyone's at home. They're all in sweatsuits. They're all looking like crap. They're putting weight on. And a lot of couples are falling apart because they lost it. Who were you when your partner fell in love with you? Yes, aging is natural, but it doesn't mean you have to gain 4 pant sizes or dress sizes because you're married. So if you lose, again, that self-love and confidence, what do you expect from your partner? You got to keep yourself sharp for your partner. And you got to keep dating. Take couples vacations. If you have kids, do 1 major family vacation, do 1 major for the couples. For a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. Reestablish yourself. Go out twice a week. Doesn't have to be expensive. It could be have a bottle of wine on the beach. Or, take a drive or take a walk or a motorcycle ride. Whatever floats your boat, but do something. Just the 2 of you. Too many adults are focusing on their kids and all the kids' activities. And then when the kids are gone, they look at each other and they have nothing. That's a problem. So it's always, I have a term for this. It's you and me against the world. So the couple has to put their partner first and then the kids, parents, and then friends, right? So That would be the order of priority. Another mistake is couples go out all the time with groups of friends. So the ladies sit at one end, the guys sit at the other end, and this is not a romantic date for the couple. That's a problem. I say do 3 to 1, 3 couples dates to 1 group date. That would be the formula per month.
That's indeed, and sometimes I see couples, and there's no judgment here, that they cannot be alone. They always have to have people around. And I'm like, when do you actually talk about stuff?
And put your phones away. The phone should not be a priority. You know, put it in your purse, in your pocket. If you're out with your partner, make them the priority. Focus in on them. You know, it's a shame. That's what happens. It just slowly erodes with time because people are not taking the time. And even on a daily basis, greet your partner at the door, give them a kiss, hello, and goodbye. Say thank you and please more often. Be your partner's best friend. Think about it. When you have best friends, you're friends with them for 15, 18 years. And you're a good friend. You don't fight over stupid stuff. It's like, that's okay. We'll just disagree on this. Be your partner's best friends. Yeah.
And do you believe that is a human being made for a couple of long-term relationships? Because I don't know. There's a lot of discussion about that. I mean, is it also made, as a second question, for one partner, for one person only? Because you have also a debate about that. I don't know where that I should get the time to have multiple partners, but what's your take on that, Riana? Because
I mean, all relationships suffer if there's affairs going on. There's no doubt about that. Children are best raised in a stable, loving household. No doubt about that. However, you know, when I hear a woman saying, I'm staying in this toxic, abusive relationship for the kids, it's the worst thing you could do. Kids are better with one strong, emotionally healthy parent than staying in a toxic household. So it's best that you divorce and make sure you and your children are emotionally healthy. If you see signs in your kids that they're struggling by teenagers, either there's 2 types of kids, externalizers and internalizers. The externalizers will act out, yell, scream, you know, run away. That's an externalizer. An internalizer is quiet, alone in their room all the time, cutting, eating disorders, you know. So if you have any sign in your kids, don't think it's just going to go away. And a lot of kids don't like sitting in a therapy office. Get them an online coach. Coaching is educational, it's motivational, inspirational, and they don't have to go to an office and feel weird about it. You know, coaching works great for teens as well as adults.
But and your personal opinion about the human being for one person?
You know, I don't really want to say. All I can say is what's best for kids and families.
Okay.
You know, back in the day, long ago, humans only lived to 30 years old. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's when it was good to have one partner and they worked together to bring crops in or feed the family or support the family financially, or the mom was at home while the dad worked. You know, this was supposedly the best way for family systems to be. Now we're living to 90, you know, so you got to keep it happy. I look at my brother and sister-in-law who've been happily together for over 40 years, you know, raising 2 boys very successfully. So, yeah, I think that's amazing when 2 people can have a great life and a lot of fun together. You know, so that's the ideal, I still believe.
Now, in terms of communication, I mean, if assume you have a situation that, and it's a very typical class. There are 2 typical classical cases, I assume, which are the average ones. Is that you have one person in the relationship, the father, for instance, is yelling at the mother, and the mother is saying nothing. That's one. And then you have, of course, the relationship where the mother is more the dominant and the father is emotionally really disconnected, and he's like, and he doesn't say anything. I think that's the typical case. In the first case about the shouting thing, I mean, chances are big that you think that this is the normal communication between partners.
It's not. You should never be yelling at your partner unless they're in harm's way. Then you yell, watch out. The problem is people are not taught how to communicate. My first degree from Penn State is in speech communications. So I re-educate everyone how to talk through issues and problems, whether they're married or in an exclusive relationship. They have to learn to express their feelings in a proactive, not reactive way. Super important. But when you're growing up in a household, there could be two partners, mom and dad, both yelling at each other. This will be a partner that tends to yell at their future wife or husband because they learned when we have a problem, we yell at each other. That's what they learned. That was what was normalized. If someone shuts down, that's what we call passive behavior. Now, indeed, if the mom is afraid of the husband because he's bigger and stronger, she will tend to get quiet. She will probably have tried to defend herself, but over time, she's like, the hell with it. He's just going to get madder and angrier. I'm not going to say anything. So that person in that home learns passive behavior will save you. So if there's a little girl growing up and watching mom do it, she's going to shut down and can't find her voice. If there's a little boy growing up and the father's yelling and screaming, and if he tries to stand up to defend his mom and he gets whacked, he's probably going to be a man that shuts down and might become passive aggressive. But he's not in tune with expressing his feelings because it was not modeled growing up. And this is the problem. So people are either passive aggressive, they shut down, or they're, again, externalizers and they yell and they scream. Neither one is good. They have to learn to calmly and with love express their feelings, work as a team to work out the problems, and move on. And this is a lot of what I do for my couples, and I do work with both couples and singles. But I have to fix these toxic behavioral patterns that came from the norms of growing up. Now, very often, women tend to be people pleasers. They saw that modeled in their moms. And these are the women that come to me really burn out, overdue for their partners to keep him happy or calm, feels resentful because they're working and doing everything in the house. The husband does nothing and they're burnt out and they're just feel not appreciated, right? So this people pleasing, we have to reteach to get the boundaries, have them learn to speak up for themselves and have more balance in life. A lot of men become impulsive. Impulsivity is one of the top things that ruin relationships. That could be a guy or woman coming from a poor home and they say, wow, I want that shiny red sports car. I'm not discussing this with my husband or wife. I'm just getting it because I work hard and I deserve it. So that's that impulse buyer, spender, who also could equate love. This is what a hoarder does. A hoarder has childhood trauma, and they learned to have things is love. So when they buy things, it makes them feel good or feel loved for a period of time. Some other things that come up is lying and manipulation. This comes from probably a male toxic parent that usually punishes severely, or an alcoholic home. So you got that 50-50 chance as a kid. Well, if I lie, I may not get beat. So they learn to lie expertly or charm and manipulate to get away with something and not get punished. So this is where lying and manipulation comes from. Jealousy and control usually comes from trauma number 2 and 7. 7, again, is not feeling good enough, pretty enough, smart enough. Trauma 2 is those verbal messages of no compliments, hearing messages instead of change your clothes, you look fat in that, or I'm not sending you in college and wasting my money on you. You'll never amount to anything. These kind of verbal put downs lead to not feeling good enough, which could mean even though your partner does everything to make you feel secure, you can still feel jealous and want to try to control your partner. Another thing that happens with models, actors, singers, dancers, and I work with a lot of celebrities, is what we call imposter syndrome. And this is, they work really hard to make it. And very often, like have worked with a couple comedians, and they were the funny kid to make mom laugh when she was depressed, or, critical and controlling. If she could make her smile, she then loved her child. So they became comedians. But a lot of comedians come from very depressed, critical, angry homes. They learn to be the class clown to get their teacher's attention, or to have friends in school. So using a lot of humor can be that, or the imposter syndrome is you finally make it in your career and then you self-sabotage with alcohol or drugs because you feel like you don't deserve it. So this shows up in so many ways. It could also be blaming behavior, not accepting responsibility, not having the ability to apologize. And this is when we get into the higher ranges of more traumas and more severity, the narcissist, the sociopath, and the psychopath.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. I mean, narcissism, I hear it a lot. I hear it a lot for the last year, especially especially for women. I mean, I assume I'm not a narcissist, but I mean, where does that come from? It's typical male. How can you detect a narcissist, or can you not detect one?
Yeah, it's like 75% male, 25% female. With sociopath, I'll explain the difference between the three. The highest, most dangerous is psychopath. One underneath, less severe, is sociopath, less severe is narcissist. There are 10 types of narcissists. Everything from a healthy narcissist that helps out people, volunteers a lot, but they're very self-focused on that. But they're not harming anyone. The one that's a harmful narcissist, the worst end of the scale, is called malignant narcissist. And both the psychopath and the sociopath is a malignant narcissist. The difference between psychopath and sociopath is the psychopath is more criminal mind. They will take time to rip someone off like a Bernie Madoff, calculating, criminal, ripping people up, no apology, blames everyone else. It's always someone else's fault. And also the psychopath will kill without remorse. So that's why they are the worst. The sociopath is also emotionally void. They don't have empathy for someone else's feelings. They do what they want without thinking about anyone else. It's all about them. If they make a mistake, they won't apologize. They'll turn around and blame the other person. This is sociopath. Both have this superficial charm. Both are master manipulators. Both are pathological liars. Again, no remorse, no guilt, emotionally shallow, need of a lot of stimulation. They're really prone to boredom. They can be in trouble when they're young people, juvenile delinquency. They don't really have a lot of realistic long-term goals. They have a lot of toxic, repetitive relationships. Poor behavior controls, usually very promiscuous sexually. No remorse over cheating. They, again, will turn around and blame their partner. But again, the difference is the calculating, cunning criminal mind between the psychopath and sociopath.
And so when you're dating, how soon can you discover that you're dating?
Well, when you're properly trained in dating with my people, they know in date 1 or 2. I have a series of questions that my clients will ask, not like a job interview, just casual conversation. But they know the 10 traumas, they know the severity levels, and just by what the date says, they can make their own assessments. So, for an example, if you'd like to hear how this works, I had a woman in her 50s, make contact online, met the guy. She said, at first I was very excited, was very handsome, pulled out the chair, got me a drink, and also asked me if I'd like something to eat. So very attentive. That was cool. So our first question is, so tell me about your mom and dad. Are they still living? Because they're in their late 50s, right? So, and he said, well, my dad was an alcoholic. So right away she was concerned. And he drank most of my young life, and he could get nasty, verbally nasty, but he quit when I was 10. And he really tried to be a better father. We did things together like camping and hunting and fishing. So he more than made up for that. So then that's showing childhood trauma healed, right? He had a good relationship and the father died. He goes, but my mother, she was an alcoholic too. And she was a mean and nasty drunk. She's in an old folks home. If I didn't have to visit her, I wouldn't. I hate seeing that bill coming in every month. So right in that way, we define that, according to my book, as a mother hater. If a man hates his mom and he has not solved this problem, as an adult, he will be verbally and emotionally abusive 9.5 out of 10 times to the wife or the exclusive female partner. So this is a huge red flag for a woman. So, they ended the date. She gave it some thought. She processed it with me, and she goes, right away, like my heart started racing. This is like a one and done date. Like, I don't want to explore this further. So he called the next day. She goes, it was really nice meeting you. I just don't think we're quite a match, and I wish you the best of luck. And he starts yelling at her.
Yelling?
She kind of just laughs because my people become very confident. They don't take any of this personal. She goes, you know what? I don't take verbal abuse. I'm going to hang up, and I wish you well. She hung up, and she blocked the guy so she would never hear from him again. So, we know right away. They know the signs of what is healthy, emotionally healthy, and what is emotionally toxic. And then we date with full conscious awareness.
Now, can I ask how young you are?
How young I am? That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I'm 63.
Okay. Now, if we would go back in time and we would meet Riana when she's 18, of all the lessons, the life lessons, all the wisdom that you gathered, what kind of advice would you give her in terms of love?
Well, my life abruptly changed psychologically for me when I was 16. My very best childhood friend was killed by a drunk driver. So it made me question, how much time do I have in life? I started reading the spiritual masters, so I was learning mindset work in my teens and my 20s. I turned spiritual. I studied the Course of Miracles. In my 20s, I went to ACIM groups. So I wish I knew the childhood trauma piece. I can look back in my life and identify what my traumas were and why I picked the partners I did. But this information just did not exist.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of who I am. I'm a great mom. My daughters are very successful. And they have great marriages. They picked wonderful men, and I have 5 grandkids and 1 on the way. So I have a very blessed life. And, I look back at myself with a lot of compassion. I worked hard. I divorced their father when my kids were like 3 and 4. So I worked very hard as a single mom. My first husband was a sociopath. He ripped off my mother $200,000, which back then is like $500,000. And I was left with that debt at 24 with 2 little girls, and yet was able to provide a house for my kids by 29 and a second property for my model and talent business. So, I look back at my life with a lot of pride, and we can't pick our life journey, but we can pick what happens to us. And the mindset for success will help you excel no matter what difficult transformation or transition you have in life, right? So this is why I teach the mindset for success and became certified as a mindset coach, because this is a big part of the healing of the childhood trauma, any love abuse you've gone through, any childhood trauma that's still not healed. We need all these techniques that I've learned over 40 years. And they worked great with my models and actors, singers, dancers, too, because they were in a small town initially. Then a New York firm bought me out, so I had 2 locations. But they were told, like, what are you think you can be an actor? That's a joke. Or I had a plus size model and her families are, you're too fat. You're throwing your money away being a model. And she ends up being a Ford special size model, making a fortune.
Great.
And my auto mechanic, who all his buddies at the shop were laughing at him, yeah, you're going to be an actor, big joke, ends up on Baywatch, a very popular show here in the USA.
Yep.
And, so you can reach your dreams and goals. And that was my job in my 20s. So I've been doing the Mindset for Success for a very long time, and I love transforming lives. But now that we have the childhood trauma piece and we can heal that, this just sets people on a major excelling level.
Now you can be very proud of what you have achieved, and more the people you have helped and had and impacted their lives. Now, I mean, I love the mindset thing, don't get me wrong. And I also believe that it's not enough. You should also work on the emotional and the spiritual side of things. Otherwise, it will not last. You mentioned
Spirituality is a big part of my program, and a lot of people come here hurt by religion. It's totally different from religion. Spirituality is a way of living 24/7. It's who you are as a person of integrity, kindness, conscious thinking, so that spiritual component is very important for healing and growth and confidence to move forward and take calculated risks, in growth in business. So
imagine there's a couple, and one of the two persons is becoming attracted and is studying like a course in miracles, and is going Buddhism, all the masters, everything, Taoism, everything that he or she can find, but the partner does not follow. So the one person is talking about energy, consciousness, awareness, raising vibration, even enlightenment. I mean, that's a very big thing, but you know the drill. The other person is like, what kind of bullshit is that? I mean, it isn't even logic. What the hell are you doing? Can such a relationship survive?
Usually not, in my opinion. Spiritual people should definitely seek out spiritual people so that they travel in their journey in life together and have the same beliefs. I think that's very important. Again, like I said, the study shows people of spirituality together that practice faith together have the happiest and longest lasting relationships.
And why is that? Is that because that they see a relationship as an invitation for growth, and that every trigger that they have, that it's about them, not about the other person, so they can reflect on themselves and say, oh, I was triggered by that. It says something about me. Instead of
spiritual people accept responsibility. We apologize quickly if we make a mistake. We always try to do better. We're into personal self-growth. We want peace in life and happiness. We're always striving for that. We're always studying more to be better, evolved people. Again, being your highest and your best self. So two people with that same mindset, of course, will be the happiest relationship. So if you are spiritually based, make sure you have a spiritually based partner when you're out there dating. I don't care about all the chemistry in the world. It means nothing. If you have someone that's going to totally not be what you're into, that's going to be an issue.
An interesting one. That's an interesting one about the chemistry. I mean, a lot of people, I'm not going to generalize and talk about women, but just people. Yeah, I saw him, her, and immediately I was attracted physically. There was some kind of aura, some kind of, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's great, but it doesn't work. The second question about it, do you need to fall in love to have a healthy a happy relationship? Because the falling in love part combined with the attractiveness is that kind of, yeah.
Well, it's that fast falling in love. Like on a first date, when someone says, I'm in love with you already, it's like, whoa, why? You don't even know me. Then, they're just falling in love with the physical part. That's no good. Because what happens when you age? What? You're not hot and young anymore? So, I mean, yes, you have to have an attraction factor. I mean, you're going to end up making love with this person. So you have to be somewhat attracted. But when you take your time and fall in love with them as a great friend, and you really like who they are as a person, and you respect them, and you have mutual admiration for maybe each other's career, and you're proud of them, right? As a person, as a human being. That's love. That's the kind of love you have for a best friend.
And
You love your best friend. You get along. You have things in common, right? And you're growing with your best friend. There's fidelity. There's trust. There's honesty. These are the important factors that help a relationship be happy. If you don't have them, you're going to get in trouble down the road.
and then
The integrity is doing the right things when nobody's looking.
yeah.
That's the trust factor.
Yeah.
Common interests, hobbies, being able to compromise and negotiate your differences in a loving, peaceful way. You're both balanced. I call it the couple's triangle, where it's you, me, and us. So you have your individual time, but includes work and maybe working out and some time with friends. But that us piece is also large. So you're spending enough time, and you're again making sure you show up for your partner in a positive way. You're flexible. You have open mind, caring, easygoing. No moodiness, jealousy, rage. That will destroy a relationship. That mood management is super important.
Yeah, interesting. I find it very interesting. I mean, but there is still a myth that, and it's popularized by media, culture in US and Europe, because I think practically we're seeing the same movies, especially nowadays with the internet. But you can see it. You can notice it. I mean, you have the thing called, but you're in the friend zone. And I think that, what you're saying, that it's just the other way around. I mean, the friend zone is okay. What they are referring to, what they are referring to the friend zone is a guy who is pleasing the girl too much and is lowering his standards in order that she would like him. If you call that the friend zone, okay, but so the friend zone for you thing is that's the perfect base foundation to start a relationship.
Yeah, no, I don't see the guy overdoing. It's like a mutual love, respect. It's like a best friend. You really enjoy hanging out with each other. You're each other's buddy. And that is the best way to fall in love. You really like the person, and then you love who they are, right? You love their character.
Yeah, you love their character. That's the thing. And there are actually no expectations.
Yeah. I mean, if indeed you move on to marry, they would be a great parent. You can see the traits that they would be a great, loving parent, a stable parent. So things like that, if you see early on they're drinking a lot, you don't want someone that's an alcoholic. But this takes time, because people usually hide that initially. And this is why, you take your time, you get to know someone over time. And I got to tell you, our world is becoming crazy. I call it since Viagra. It's the hookup culture. Even in my age group, it's like, are you serious? You haven't grown up yet? They're looking to hook up on the first, second date. It's like, this is ridiculous. And you see the emotional immaturity in that. So, and a big sign of that is online, where my ladies are saying, the men say, must have chemistry. I'll know when you show up if we're moving forward. And it's like analyzing, what do they look like? And is he turned on? And then maybe he'll see you a second time. I mean, those kind of profiles, my ladies are like, ick, and just like move on. It's like, who are you as a person? What is your work? Are you a father? Do you have a great relationship with your kids? Do you do work that you're proud of because you spend 40 hours at least a week there, or do you hate your job? I mean, we want to know the character of someone, right? And then they go into all the sports they do. What sports tell a woman? Well, I have no time for you because I'm watching sports with my buddies all weekend. So we're not impressed by sports. So it's like, who are you as a person? So all the men out there, write a profile that shows and highlights you and your character as a man. That's what women want to know.
And a last question, because we're going over time, I find it so interesting. Do you believe, and it's a general statement, because I am a little convinced of that statement, and I'm going to shock some people here, but I'm convinced that yes, the women, they also need to work on themselves and heal them. 100% I agree. But I really think that we're moving in a situation where the men even needs to do more work in terms of engaging and connecting with women. I'm not talking about an heterosexual environment. In terms of expressing emotions, it's again that healing thing, is that trauma thing, and I think there lies the biggest work, and that's something I see with a lot of men, because what they perceive as male is not male really. It's a kind of a popularized version of male, like the thing you just described, because I see it when I feel you, or when I know when I see you.
Or the men saying on the first date, you should know I'm really highly sexual. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's his focus. Next. You don't say that on a first date. Things like that, like, really? Us women aren't impressed.
Yeah, I know, but these men need help.
Yes, and I only, when we were growing up, we didn't see our grandparents or parents' generation acting like that. There was actually courtship, people dating for a while to get to know each other before hopping into bed. What happened to courtship? And the thing is, us women have to say, this does not work. And when all the women say, no thanks, not interested, this does not work for me, this is the empowered women that I send out in dating world, then they are meeting the evolved, emotionally healthy men. And they're finding them. It is a numbers game. Unfortunately, it seems to be fewer and fewer. But they know exactly what to look for, and they will not settle for this shallow, emotional man. And, I'm starting to get more and more men here at my practice, which I love that. Because when they're done, they're so incredible as people. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could clone you and have 100 men out there just like you for all the women that want a genuine guy that's loving and kind, can speak his feelings without yelling and screaming or intimidating, and, be supportive and be a partner with the kids and a partner in the house and a partner in work, right? And have the same goals and yet spiritual as well. That's what women want.
Yeah. And as a closing line, men, work on yourselves. That's what women want. Riana, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too, Peter. And I want to encourage your listeners to, if they want more information on childhood trauma, just go to my website. It's my name, rianamilne.com. And the free ebook is there. I have the 4 free love tests. Book chapter downloads of Love Beyond Your Dreams and Live Beyond Your Dreams, which is about the mindset for success. They're meant to go together. And my podcast is called Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Riana Milne. Lots of free advice there and on my YouTube channel. So cool. Help yourselves, guys.
Yeah, but I will mention everything. I will mention everything in the show notes, Riana. Okay. Take care and all the best.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, it's Peter here. Thanks a lot for listening to What's on Your Mind. Looking forward to your opinions and comments. And don't forget to subscribe on psgrow.com and leave your email address to stay tuned for future episodes. Bye!